Hello friends, welcome to Ansarkari. I am Vikas Bhardwaj and in this video we are going to throw light upon what was happening in the regions beyond Narmada and Vindhya region between 5th to 8th century. Already we have seen that between 5th to 8th century there were certain important developments in context of North India. When we see South India, we have to see that what was happening after the decline of Satavahanas. After the decline of Satavahanas, one important power that emerged was that of Chalukyas. Chalukyas had their base at Vatapi, and one of the most prominent king was Pulakeshin II, who went on to defeat Harsha on the banks of Neva Narmada, which is mentioned at Ayole inscription, which is done by Ravi Kirti. In context of two enemies of Chalukyas, one would be Pallavas, that is down south, who were based at Kanchipuram, and other would be Rashtrakutas. But Rashtrakutas and Chalukyas are not contemporary. It will be by 8th century AD that Rashtrakutas will be emerging. Initially you can say that Rashtrakutas in northern Deccan, they will be a very small subordinate power. But slowly they will be getting confidence, energy and ambition and vision. That is how by 8th century they will be a great, or you can say a strong power against Chalukyas. Between Chalukyas and Pallavas there will be consequent fights. Pulakeshin II will be able to defeat King Mahendravarman, and that will be a great victory for Chalukyas. However, soon King Narasimhavarman II will be able to come back and attack Vatapi, and he will be avenging the defeat. So this was a recurring phenomena. But can you say all these fights were a kind of a symbol of war state? It was not like that. Territorial expansion was one of the key elements for security of the state, but there were other norms, other conventions, because trade and commerce, art and culture, and also religion, it was prospering side by side. King Pulakeshin II went on to send embassy to Iran to King Khusro, and he was also welcoming in nature, because we can see that large number of people, and you can see different communities, they made India their home. For example, Parsis, what we call today, they settled down on the western coast. When we see from Gujarat till Konkan region and till Malabar, you will find lot of important sites which have been habitated by Parsis. It was an ancient religion which is linked with the word Zoroastrianism, and it is linked with the book, sacred book, like the way we have Vedas. Similarly for Parsis, you can say, or you can say for Zoroastrians, the important book is Zendavesta, and the king, or I should say God or Lord, it is Zoroaster, or you can say Ahura Mazda. The God believes in the fact that there is always a fight between good and evil forces, and finally good forces will emerge victorious. Until the coming of Islam, you can say, it was one of the most important and prosperous religion to be followed in Central Asia and West Asia. However, Pulakeshin II will be promoting art and architecture also. It was in this time period that a new style of temple architecture will be emerging. If you visit parts of Karnataka, you will find new style of temple architecture emerging in this time period. At the same time, Pallavas, having base at Kanchipuram, they will also be emerging. Pallavas, once upon a time, you can say, they were also a very small family, or they were also subordinated to Satavahanas, but now they re-emerge as a powerful kingdom. King Mahendravarman, who was initially a Jaina follower, later on he will be becoming a Shaivite, that means follower of Lord Shiva, under the influence of Bhakti saint Appar. Because Bhakti as a movement will be emerging in this time period in South India. Definitely important role is played by kings, Pallava kings, and other places also, but there will be two distinct divisions, or you can say norms. When we say who were the followers of Lord Vishnu, they will be called as Alvars. And when we say who were the followers of Lord Shiva, they will be Nayanars. So Alvars and Nayanars, they are the propagators of Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement, following vernacular languages, that is Tamil, singing hymns in the praise of Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. People belonging to all caste, all classes, and also all backgrounds. They were bringing the real aspirations and grievances of masses in their hymns, and they were asking for direct access to God in terms of great devotion, and that's all. If you have a great devotion, if you have a great commitment, and if you are a true devotee, they believed you can achieve God. That is how Bhakti movement is going to be becoming a large and a very huge process and movement in South India, and from South it will be coming to North India. So Pallavas, like King Mahendravarman, he will be, apart from King Narasimhavarman too, they will be linked with construction of rathas, or you can say chariot temples at Mahabalipuram, as you can see from this picture. Similarly, there will be development in terms of large temples, say Kailash Nath temple at Kanchipuram. This is a very, very famous temple. Here a look at this photograph. When we talk about Chalukyas, then they also represented development in art and architecture, but when it comes to Ellora caves, they were greatly, you can say, contributed and promoted by Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakutas went on to play a very important role in construction and you can say development of Ellora caves. One of the most famous masterpiece sculpture of art over there is Kailash temple, or you can say Kailash Nath temple. Don't confuse between the two. There is a Kailash Nath temple at Kanchipuram also. There is a Kailash temple at Ellora. Generally we call it Kailash temple in order to discriminate, or you can say distinguish it from Kailash Nath. Kailash temple at Ellora is a single monolith stone. It is the largest single monolith stone structure which have been chiseled out from top to bottom. If you just have a look at Kailash temple. So in Deccan and in South India between 5th to 8th century, there are a lot of important developments, as we have seen in context of Chalukyas, in context of Pallavas, also in terms of Bhakti movement, some elements of Zoroastrianism. All this was making a kind of a churning pot or a boiling pot for the future. That is how, unlike North India, the position in South India was little different, and it will be leading to newer developments in the coming future. That is what we say beginning of early medieval India, because till this time period we call that it was ancient India, and that is how legacy, ideas and development, they give us a future indication that what is possible when we do in the future. Looking forward to your comments, feedback and also sharing of our channel. All the best for understanding and for your examinations. Thank you very much.